Before we dive into this story, make sure you hit that subscribe button, because what you're about to hear, something I never thought I'd say out loud. This isn't just a story about a mistake, it's about temptation, silence, and the kind of choices that stay with you long after the moment is gone. My name is Daniel. I'm 30 years old. If you met me on the street, you'd probably describe me as ordinary. I've been working as a plumber for the same company for years now. It's not glamorous, but it pays the bills. It's stable, predictable, and honestly, I used to think that was enough. I'm married. My wife's name is Emma. She's everything you'd expect in a partner, kind, supportive, grounded. The kind of person who makes a house feel like a home. For most of my life, I believed I had everything figured out, until one unexpected situation changed everything. Emma's mother, Margaret. Our relationship had always been neutral, no drama. No deep connection either, just polite conversations during family dinners. Occasional small talk, respectful distance. We weren't close, but we weren't uncomfortable either. Just existing in the same space when necessary. So when Emma told me her mom was having issues with her apartment, burst pipes, water damage, the whole mess, and suggested she stay with us for a while, I didn't think twice. We had space. 3 rooms, it made sense, at least. At the time, the first few weeks were completely normal. Margaret mostly stayed in her room. Sometimes she'd watch TV in the living room. Occasionally we'd all eat together. Nothing unusual. Nothing that raised any kind of red flag, but slowly, something began to shift, not outside, inside me. It wasn't obvious at first, just small things. A passing glance that lasted a second too long. The faint scent of her perfume lingering in the hallway. Moments that felt heavier than they should have. I tried to ignore it, told myself I was imagining things, but the feeling didn't go away. It grew quietly, patiently. Then came the night everything changed. Emma had left for a friend's bachelorette party. She was going to be gone for a couple of days. It was just me and Margaret in the apartment. I remember thinking it would be a quiet evening. Maybe I'd watch a movie, eat something simple, go to bed early. Nothing out of the ordinary. I was in the kitchen cooking dinner when I heard something fall in the living room. I walked in to check. Margaret was there, bending down to pick up a book she had dropped. The lighting was soft. The room was quiet, and for a brief moment, something felt different. I can't fully explain it, but something about that moment lingered. I shook it off and went back to the kitchen. Or at least, I tried to. Later that night, I went to get a glass of water. Margaret was at the sink washing dishes. Her hair was slightly damp. She wore a simple robe, nothing unusual. But when she turned and looked at me, there was something in her expression, something I hadn't seen before, not just familiarity, not just comfort, something deeper, something unspoken. We didn't say anything at first. We just stood there looking at each other, and in that silence, everything changed. It wasn't planned. It wasn't discussed, but in that moment, the distance we had always maintained seemed to disappear, and that was the beginning of something we both knew shouldn't exist. Afterward, reality hit hard. We both knew this wasn't right, that it crossed a line that should never be crossed. Margaret was the first to speak. "This can't happen." "Again," she said quietly, and I agreed. Of course I did, because that's what you're supposed to say. But sometimes, knowing something is wrong doesn't stop you from feeling it. And a week later, it happened again. Then again, each time followed the same pattern. Silence, distance, promises. And then, breaking those promises. It wasn't just about the moment anymore. It became something we couldn't easily shut off, and that made it even more dangerous. The hardest part wasn't what happened in private. It was what happened in front of Emma, sitting at the dinner table, acting normal, holding conversations like nothing had changed. Meanwhile, one glance across the table would say everything we weren't saying out loud. It was exhausting, the pretending, the guilt, the tension. I started noticing things about Margaret I had never paid attention to before. Her laughter, the way she carried herself, the quiet expressions that most people would miss, and every detail made things harder, not easier. Eventually, Margaret moved back into her apartment, and just like that, the situation ended, at least physically. We both agreed to move on, to pretend it never happened, to keep things normal. But what we didn't realize was that some things don't just disappear. They stay in your thoughts, in your memory, in the spaces where silence lives. Even now, months later, I still find myself thinking about it, at random moments, when I least expect it, and during family gatherings. When our eyes meet for just a second, there's an understanding, a quiet acknowledgement of something we both remember, but will never talk about again. She avoids sitting too close. I avoid looking too long. But the tension, it never fully left. One night after a particularly uncomfortable dinner, I walked her to her car. The air was cool, the street was quiet. She looked at me and said something I'll never forget. "You're a good man, Daniel." "I hope you know that." I didn't respond because I wasn't sure if that was true anymore. And as I watched her drive away, I realized something. Some choices don't just affect your present. They follow you, they stay with you, and no matter how much time passes, they don't fully let go. So now I'm left with a question I still can't answer. What do you do when something that should never have happened feels impossible to forget? If you made it this far, comment your thoughts below, and don't forget to subscribe, because stories like this, they're more real than you think.